military neuroscientists who were talking about caffeine usage, but they were talking about how it's actually a big positive. That there's a saturation.
Those
200 milligrams.
Those kids on the submarine, they eat that stuff up.
Oh, yeah.
Packets and stuff like that.
I mean, they still do it.
You ready? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. Today is Tuesday, February 25th. It's 9 a.m. We're in the community wing of City Hall. If you call this meeting to order, if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Allison, could you call the roll, please?
Of course. Mayor Norris,
Here.
Vice Mayor Panieri,
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro,
Here.
Councilmember Miller,
Here.
and Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll begin today with public participation. Please make sure you're following the rules, and if it's an item that's on the agenda, please wait until that item. You will have plenty of time to speak on it. I would also like to add no vulgarity or excessive profanity, please. With that being said, we are open for public participation. Anyone have anything to say? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Joel Davison, Palm Coast. What I would like to ask everybody to do this morning is to consider, for Kathy and I, and anybody that would be in that situation that we're in with our Airbnb home, and there's not many, as I did send out to everybody a list, and there's very few really in our situation, that we could be grandfathered in and not to unlimited number of people in our home, but to 3 people per bedroom. That would really solve 98% of our problem. And we'll take the final little bit on the chin. In that, you know, the number of people we could have in our very, very large 4,000 square foot home with 5 bedrooms available to rent at 3 people per bedroom, that's our comfort zone. That's kind of where we live, is 10 to 15 people, because our home is very large and it's never been a problem. We've been doing it for 9 years, almost 10 years now. And we have had a few times where we've had 17 people or 16 with a sports team or people from China, they travel like that, and that's okay. So we could lose, 1 reservation a year, but our comfort zone is 10 to 15. That's just very, very common. And again, it would be a big hit on our financial life that we've been able to live for the last 9 years as we've gone along. And so we would just encourage you and ask you to consider grandfathering us in, and it could be a very short time period. That way people don't sign up for Airbnb a year from now or next month or 3 months from now, and they want to claim they live in their home and they want to get in to some kind of a long-term exception. But just people, the small handful like us, and especially us, that this will really affect, that we could be grandfathered in so that we are not limited to the same 2 people per bedroom that the people who do not live in their homes are limited to, and which is an important rule, and we're very happy that that rule is there. We certainly wouldn't want to live in a neighborhood with an empty house that could have a lot of people at it. So we just ask everybody to consider grandfathering us in like that. I know the city of Palm Coast, when the state legislature was going to pass that rule a year or 2 ago, the city of Palm Coast actually was going to be grandfathered in to not be affected, from what I understand, what we were told by Airbnb. And so it would really be doing the same thing for us that Palm Coast had asked the state legislature for, and I guess Palm Coast was approved, and then of course that didn't go through anyway. And so thank you for your time and hopefully consideration.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? No way. All these people in here, no one else has anything to say. Okay, with that being said, we will move on. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Connie. If it's an item on the agenda, please wait. Okay, thank you, Ms. Connie. Next on the agenda is item E, presentations. I didn't skip anything, did I, Allison?
No.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from SGR regarding the city manager applications. Is Mr. Thomas on the line?
Yes, sir. Mr. Thomas is appearing virtually. Mr. Thomas, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear and see me?
We are loading you up and trying to get your presentation going. If you
Okay.
want to share your screen, you should be able to do so now.
Yeah, let's just do it that way.
And-
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, Councilman Stevens is also on teleconference. Let me cue this up for you, Doug, please. These new applicants that we have in the current queue, does anyone on the council know any of these people, the applicants, personally or professionally? Okay, I have, for true transparency, I know a couple of these people. I know Mr. Uresti, he's one of the applicants. I actually worked for him in Okinawa. And Mr. Pillith, I think his name is, Scott Pillith, he's from here in Palm Coast. I don't know him professionally, but I have met him personally. So with that being said, Doug, go right ahead.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate the opportunity to be with you again this morning. Apologize we're not there in person, but I understand you've got a busy agenda, so I will do my best per instruction to try to get through this as quickly as possible, because I know you've got a fairly full agenda with a variety of other presenters scheduled today as well. But just as a background, can everyone see the screen that I've got shared?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Excellent, super, okay. Well, the process today, as you know, when we last met with you, we narrowed down to 6 semifinalists that we've asked those individuals to start working on questionnaires and video interviews. But we were also asked if there was an ability to keep the position open, to continue to kind of shake the trees, if you will, with regards to trying to find any other prospective candidates that might be interested in applying. There were some concerns because this posting period appeared around the holidays, and so based on that direction, we went ahead and did that, and I'll kind of walk you through what we've done to try to help in that regard. Our goal today is to just bring you up to speed on where we are. We've previously submitted a variety of candidates that have applied since the last round and when we met with you. Our goal today is to review those candidates briefly and get a sense of addressing any questions or concerns you might have with any of those candidates. And then out of that group, determining if there's some additional folks that you might want to wish to continue to proceed in the process. And then we can review what the next steps and things look like from there. So as we've said in the past, and we appreciate the fact to try to keep everybody up to speed as candidates are in this process. If you could just please refer any of those contacts that might occur to you or your staff, to either Michael or myself, we'll be glad to kind of pick up the pieces so everybody gets the same information at the same time. So as I mentioned, at our last meeting on the 28th, we were asked to continue that opening the position. What we have done on our website is mark it as open until filled, but we're getting to the point where it's going to be difficult to continue to manage that going forward much beyond where we're at today, but we can talk about that at the end of the discussions. What we did on that is marketing it, continue to leave the outreach activities that SGR has done through our social media platforms and additional contacts. We've provided additional information to close to 6,000 subscribers of our opt-in subscribers for city manager type positions. And then collectively between myself and Michael and all the folks at SGR, we've sent out an additional close to 4,000 outreach emails informing them of the opportunity to go forward into the Palm Coast position.
As a result of that work, between up through last week, we ended up with having 11 additional candidates. One of those, actually 2 of those were in previous posts, but there's 2 different distinctions there. We'll walk through those here shortly. They came from 6 different states. Most of them came from Florida, but then you've also seen candidates from Georgia, Nevada, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Ohio, and Rhode Island. The demographics of those are folks that are, well, they didn't identify male and female at that point, but basically you can see a variety of mixtures of white, choosing not to respond, Hispanic and Latino categories. So as we've done in the past, what I've done is put these together in alphabetical order, so there's no deference as to who's first or last in that regard. And you've seen all these candidates in your material that we had sent to you earlier. So let me introduce them briefly and then address questions as we get through this review. The first candidate is Kimberly Meek. Kimberly most recently served for a short period of time in Stillwater, Oklahoma, a community of about 50,000, so about half your size. But prior to that had served for in Duncan, Oklahoma from 2016 to 2023. And then also has a background in finance and city management work in another community in Oklahoma, and worked her way up through finance and deputy clerk type positions in another community in Oklahoma. As you can see, has a master's degree in business administration, as well as a bachelor's degree in business administration, specializing in accountant. Pretty good sized organization, and as I said, comparable, a little smaller than you, but at 50,000 to 100,000, those complexities and the dynamics of those organizations are very, very similar as well. Larry Tibbs, next candidate, city manager of Moorhaven, Florida, smaller community, serving that role since 2021. As you can see, also brings a variety of experience from other positions, largely coming up through the financial ranks. Was an ACM and a director of finance and purchasing and information technology in the city of Belle Glade from 2016 to 2021. Also in administration and finance in Lehigh Acres Fire Control and Rescue District for a period of time, and also finance director and purchasing and information technology in Green Acres down in South Florida, a community of 44,000 from 2005 to 2012. But then also has that background in finance, as I mentioned earlier, was a budget director there in Palm Bay, Florida, comparable size community to you for a few years from 2003 to 2005. I think brings the financial understanding, budgeting type finance, and also been in the city manager role, has kind of moved himself into the leadership role, although most recently in a smaller community, but certainly has some larger experience in some of his previous work as well. The next candidate that the mayor mentioned, I believe it's Uresti, I believe is how it's pronounced. Is that correct, Mayor? Okay. One of the candidates, we have a variety of folks that have come out of the military, as we had in the first round. That was something that SDR was asked to see if we could help you bring some non-traditional candidates as well. This particular candidate has brought experience largely in operations and camps and administration and HR type functions, but a variety of other components, as you can see from his resume, in terms of managing operations and managing people in the process. So in his current operation, or his most recent operation, was handling facilities and community relations and force penetration, protection and mission assurance, and handling logistics and operations overall. So he has done a senior civilian and chain of command in the camp commander operation, his most recent role. Total upgrades, infrastructure projects, so capital improvement type of functions, about $350 million of engineering system command projects, and close to $1.8 billion consolidation wide replacement facility operations and things. So, and understanding operations and capital type facilities as well. Indicated that his operations impacted close to 40,000 folks, including 800 subordinates in that particular function. Some of the other work: administrative officer, human resource director, and a base director, advanced military maintenance and repair and overhaul center in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates for several years, and functions there. Were associated with Director of Comprehensive Administration and HR functions for a workforce from close to involving 22 different countries, ensuring development and implementation of effective practices. handled recruitment, staffing, HR functions, and a variety of other HR administrative type components in that role. The role over as maintenance material control officer in his service over in Japan had operations of close to 300 personnel, handling maintenance on aircraft and budget, procurement, logistics, things of that nature. So a lot of day-to-day operational functions at the base there. And then a couple other positions up in Jacksonville, Florida, as the administrative officer, assistant maintenance and department head, and also supply logistics officer. Basically functions close to 300 personnel, handling operation and readiness of F-18 aircraft operations. Also handled time, attendance, and personnel administration functions there as well. Lee brings a master's degree in management and leadership and also a bachelor's degree in business. Next candidate is Mel Evans, a grants administrator with the city of Sparks, Nevada, a comparable size community to you. Been there since 2022. You're going to see she brings some economic development background. That was something that I know in the profile you had expressed some interest in proceeding and trying to determine how you to diversify your tax base there. And so her functions there certainly are running grants and administration operations. Prior to that, she had worked for the state of Nevada, working in the federal assistance program, basically managing professional telework, part of a teleworking team. Handling operations and grant programs and assistance to local governments from the state. She served briefly as a tribal administrator and economic development coordinator for the Washoe Tribe of Nevada in California in Gardnerville, Nevada for a period. She had about 27 directors in 2 different states. Budgets of about $36 million overall. And handle personnel and day-to-day kind of functions of the staffing operations of the Washoe Tribe. She also had some private consulting operations, as you can see. Many of our folks will do that in between positions. She served in doing local government and economic development consulting operations from 2017 to 2019, and then served as a senior economic development specialist with the city of Las Vegas, Nevada, and also an economic development director for the town of Camp Verde, Arizona, for a period of time. And she brings a master's degree in education, a bachelor's degree in applied management. Michael Brohart is a candidate that is here in Florida, currently serving as the interim city manager and CRA executive director up in Crescent City, Florida. I know they've gone through some recruitment challenges up there, and so I know he's serving in that interim capacity to help them as they're trying to define or select their full-time ongoing manager. Served also in Ohio as a city administrator. You'll see the title Safety Service Director with the city of Wapakoneta, Ohio. The term Safety Services Director, I've done enough searches in Ohio. Those really serve as city managers, city administrators, just the titles that are often used in the state. So it's not necessarily public safety, although they would potentially oversee police and fire operations. But Safety Service Director really equates to a city manager or city administrator. So served in that capacity for a few years as well, handled all operations, including a water, sewer, electric, and electric distribution function there as well. Also served as an administrator at the village of North Baltimore, Ohio, a smaller community, for a few years. In North Baltimore was general operations, including water and wastewater utility functions. As county manager at Camden County, North Carolina from 2016 to 2018. Overall finance, grants, intergovernmental relations, FEMA coordinations, had water and wastewater operations and some capital projects, and then also served as a county administrator in Barnstable County up in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Larger community, 232,000 in total population from 2013 to 2016. And full functions with close to about 450 personnel overseeing operations day to day. And then also was the county business manager at St. Lucie County here in Fort Pierce, Florida, larger community as well from 2004 to 2013, and handled the total gamut responsibilities of a traditional county manager for a fairly urbanized county there in Fort Pierce. Michael brings a master's degree in public administration and a bachelor's degree in urban administration. Scott Pilla, one of your residents there in Palm Coast. Scott, I originally sent you some material that was kind of an abbreviated resume. I've subsequently asked for some additional documentation to kind of give a better sense of the scope and responsibilities of the position he has held in various capacities in working for the federal government. Sometimes you got to kind of work your way through on some of these positions, but overall he serves a lot in logistics and IT and operations for different components in senior level positions to look at efficiencies and operational standards. In his current position, he's a senior advisor and project manager working with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection within the Office of Information Technology and Enterprise Infrastructure and Operations. That's based in Virginia, although he is based, as I mentioned, he's located there in Palm Coast, so he's doing that remote. He's been doing that work since November of 2024 and continues to do that work today. And so in that capacity, he is basically working with a division of close to 1,000 personnel, a lot of billions of dollars of equipment across the country and across the globe, handles strategic IT planning, implementation, workforce guidance, operational reports, monitors, kind of an overall operational efficiency type focus is what I've seen in most of his roles. Served for a period of time as a management project analyst with NOAA. Did that with the United States Department of Agriculture, doing that presently as well. And that is also, I understand, to be a remote type position, similar type operations, looking at operations, IT functions, things of that nature. Similar capacity as a management analyst, enterprise architect with the United States Department of Agriculture, did that for a period of time. Similar roles as what I mentioned on his current position. Other work that he has done as a management program analyst with the Bureau of Land Management and California State Support Office, and also a subject matter expert to the Army Surgeon General Logistics and Management Specialist with the Department of Defense, and then also had served as lead inventory management specialist, assistant distribution chief with the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. All these works, as I say, as I get a sense, is operational, IT focus, and project efficiency operations that he would be focusing on in these different roles. Some other positions: district asset forfeiture coordinator with the United States Marshal Service up in Georgia, and then also administrative officer with the National Institute of Standards and Technologies in Gaithersburg. And then was also a contracts administrator with the Defense Contract Management Agency in Virginia, and also served as a supervisory and logistics management specialist and an undersecretary for the United States Army on various other sustainment units. I don't have locations on that, but served in a variety of venues from 1987 to 2012. Has a master's degree in cybersecurity, a bachelor's in psychology, and is also a project management professional. Sonia Alves Viveros is a candidate that we may recall from our first round. Originally, Sonia had applied for the position, but decided to withdraw before we did the triage. I know that I think Councilmember Pontieri had asked a question about her as well as part of the outreach efforts. When you ask us to come back to do additional recruitment activities, Sonia and I had a chance to talk through her decision. She was debating about whether this was the right time, the right opportunity. I kind of gave her a chance I explained kind of what was going on with regards to the activities in Palm Coast and the challenges there. She decided that she would be interested in remaining in the post. So you've seen her background before, but wanted to let you know that was the background. She's now back into this opportunity and is interested in seeing if there's interest in proceeding with her. Working in a comparable size community as the manager up in township of Edison in New Jersey, and comparable size to you at 100,000 in population, has been in that role since 2022. She also does some instruction work at Rutgers University, and also had served as a city manager in Englewood, New Jersey for a few years, and then worked her way from other positions in the township of Maplewood, New Jersey from 2016 to 2020. As you see, her background originally started as a deputy city clerk in Summit, New Jersey, working in that capacity as well. So comparable size to you overall in her functions. She's indicated she's got an interest in relocation to Florida area. As I said, having chatting with her, and she's fully aware of your kind of challenges and issues, and really decided that she thought she would be interested in coming back into the pool as well. One of the positions is an assistant township clerk in HR work in Bernards Township. So been up in the New Jersey area, but was very much intrigued by some of the opportunities that are presented there in Palm Coast. Tom Hansberger, another one of our kind of military non-traditional candidates that came forward, is currently serving as a general manager with MCOR Facility Services in Plain City, Ohio. But as you can say, most of his background has been in the military and operational functions before then. But basically, in his current position, that operation is basically a kind of a maintenance site-based operations for facilities. So he handles presently about 215 employees and about 45 million in annual revenue. Handles a lead position in coordinating those facility master contracts, if you will, in various capacities across the country. And as you can see in his background in the military, retired as a colonel in the U.S. Army. Was president of the Directorate of Cadet Activities and vice president of the Directorate of Admissions. Handled about 260 employees in the execution of activities for close to 4,400 students there at the West Point Academy. I've been an advisor, a military advisor in Afghanistan and Kandahar for a period in time. Led about 61 person multinational force in that function, and then a variety of other capacities in recruitment and training functions as well with the United States Department of Army. Master's degree in military arts and science, and a bachelor's degree in economics.
What was,
Hey, Tom,
go ahead, Councilman.
can you go back one slide, please?
Certainly.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a couple things. One, I served in Kandahar, and I ran the garrison there. It's it's essentially a NATO city of over 40,000 people, a large installation. And while I was serving there, and so I looked at Mr. Hansberger's references, and you may know him, Mr. Mayor. Lieutenant General retired J.T. Thompson, Field Artillery Officer. He is probably one of the toughest bosses I've ever had to serve under in my life, and I worked for the president, right? So General Thompson, I called him, and he had nothing but incredible recommendations for Mr. Hansberger. Also, Mr. Jim Burnett, as a U.S. Army Reserve Ambassador, gave glowing reviews. And that mission that he did as a senior military advisor for U.S. Forces Afghanistan, training the Afghan Army is probably one of the most complex mission sets that anybody can run. And so when I look at this, I think colonel and above in the U.S. military, you're an executive. Also, Mr. Mayor, he commanded a recruiting battalion, so I know you're familiar with that stuff, and he was a deputy commander at U.S. Army Training Brigade. But the thing that stood out to me was General J.T. Thompson. That guy doesn't give anybody compliments, and he was over the top, right? And I can tell you from personal experience that I don't think he ever gave me any compliments, but I turned out okay. But it was good to see that, as we look at all these different candidates and, and spot checking and doing some due diligence, that there was some good news from somebody that I respected. I had two people that I knew and respected. So the feedback that I have is extremely positive, and I'll be asking for consensus from this council to move Mr. Hansberger to the next step.
All right, thank you, Councilman. So I'm assuming he's a combat arms officer.
Field artillery.
Hoorah. Okay, let's go on, Doug.
Okay.
Just, it's an inside joke, everyone. I'm a retired field artillery officer, so, okay. Go ahead. And I actually served in that training brigade out there. My first assignment as a lieutenant. Yes, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you. And
Doug.
Charlie did have a chance to chat with me a little bit about that as well, help fill in the gaps in some of the background. So I appreciate that work, that insight as well. Thank you. This next candidate is a candidate I have seen in a couple. He has been a finalist in a couple of my other searches for city manager position. So he's been vetted in two recent searches in I'd say the last 3 or 4 years. Bill Riccio. Bill currently serves as Director of Department of Public Services up in Newport, Rhode Island. Obviously, you're going to look at the size and think that's a smaller community. Many of you know Newport. It's a very high touch tourist community, so their population swells during the summer seasons and during the tourist seasons as well. The organization does not necessarily have a deputy or an assistant city manager. Bill has traditionally served in that capacity, although the title isn't reflected that way. But in my previous work and background work on Bill, I've known that as well. Several of your other candidates in your first round also have this background of public works engineering and kind of capital project management type functions. Bill would certainly fall into that category. He has been expressing some interest in moving into the role of a city manager. As I said, I've had him in 2 other searches as city manager candidates as finalists. So as you can see, basically he's handling transportation infrastructure, capital projects, solid waste, operations, fleet, all the kind of functions that come with a traditional public works function. He's been in that role since 2007. Prior to that, he worked as a project manager in highway engineering in Rhode Island Department of Transportation as an engineer. As you can see, he has a PE. He has that PE certification in Rhode Island. So big, high customer contact experiences in his current position, and also very significant project management experience. And has been in a lead capacity in a very high-profile community with a lot of tourism and a lot of just high touch in terms of customer services and demands. I mentioned in some of my previous presentations, there are a couple of different major leading professional development opportunities for managers to proceed with. One of those is the Harvard University Senior Executives in State and Local Government. Bill went through that process as well. It's a fairly intensive program for commitment learning. It's an on-site base for about, I think it's about 8 weeks, as I recall, that process going forward. So Bill's known to SDR and certainly a solid candidate as well.
That candidate there certainly has longevity. He's been in his current job since 2007.
Exactly,
That's
and also, obviously a good stretch with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Bill doesn't move around. He's pretty selective in where he wants to go to as well. Absolutely. And your last candidate, William Lee Smith. This is a candidate that just applied last week. Lee is coming from county operations up in Georgia and North Carolina. He actually, when he was most recently, I'll talk about beyond his consultant work, when he was county manager in Chatham County, Georgia, that's in the Savannah area. They've gone through a transition in the kind of the politics and direction of the board. Left there on his own accord in the process. He actually did some consulting, also did some caregiving for a mother and I believe a grandson for that period of time, and is now interested in getting back into the market of local government. But a candidate that brings large operational experience. As you can see, all the communities in his most 2 recent positions as county manager in Chatham County, as well as the county manager and CEO of Wayne County, both pretty large functions in terms of size and scope, comparable in size in budgets, and comparable in size in terms of the number of employees that he'd be involved with in operations. Handles full service functions. Was also a executive director in economic development in Columbus County. So he brings that period as well. I know, as we mentioned earlier with another candidate, economic development was a function of concern for you and helping you diversify your income levels. Brings a bachelor's degree in business administration, and there's also, you may remember from my earlier presentations, we have a credentialing process through the International City County Management Association called Credential Manager. It's an opportunity to evaluate your skills through a self-assessment, and then a development of an action plan and where you're going to enhance those skills. And there's an annual reapplication process demonstrating at least 40 hours of continual improvement and a work plan on what you're doing to enhance yourself. And so William, or Lee in this case, he goes by as an ICMA credential manager. And Michael was, as you may remember, Michael was up in South Carolina and knew the candidate, had a chance to speak with this candidate as well. And we feel it's a pretty strong background and are pretty comfortable in terms of, I know you're interested in getting folks that have those larger city county experiences as well. So those are your folks that we've got. I apologize, I went through that quickly, recognizing your agenda, but my hope is that out of this group, there's hopefully some folks. I know that at least Charlie has indicated a support for at least one of these candidates, but hopefully there's some support for some other folks as well. So what I have done, if you will, let me stop that for a second and bring up this other slide.
Don't bring that up. Goodness gracious, look at that head.
Let's see here.
While you're doing that, Doug, does, Vice Mayor, have you done any deep dives in any of these that you think we should eliminate off the top? I know a couple I have, and, you know, just newspaper articles and stuff like that. Are there any that you see that fall into that same category?
So I've said before, even though this isn't an elected position, it is very much a political position. And one of the ones that I am conflicted about is Mr. William Smith, the final candidate that we just went through. I think if you look at his resume and if you read about some of his accomplishments, they would be great in our city. Some really good economic development accomplishments, budgetary, balancing budget accomplishments, things like that. But he was kind of abruptly suspended and then fired by his last city council, and nobody had any grounds. Nobody would talk about why. There was a severance agreement that was entered into between him and I believe the county that he was with. And they didn't have anything really negative to say, but you always kind of wonder about what happened. Was it purely political, or is there more there? So it's tough without really speaking to a lot of these. I did not see any red flags like I did in the last round that would completely deter me from any of these newer candidates. The one that obviously I want to move forward with is Miss Sonia. She was in the last application pool that we had, then she pulled her application. So I'm very glad to see that she's interested and does want to move forward, but there weren't any that I would just go ahead and mark off, no.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Miller?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, to your point about Mr. Smith, I agree that the resume looks great, right? So I think maybe it's worth bringing him into the final round to kind of explore that more and see if there's, a reason that we can see why that happened. Maybe it was just a change, right? And he was asked to leave. I'm not sure, or he left on his own. I'm not sure. But we could explore that and kind of find more information that way. In terms of other applicants, I agree with Mrs. Viveros, as well as potentially Mr. Heinsberger.
Well, we're going to go through and rack and stack them, Councilman. So, but nothing that eliminates any of those off the top. I guess they don't have Flagler Live up there to run at the ground. Councilman, you got anything?
No, I think it's worth moving forward with Sonia as well.
Okay,
And
well.
I don't know if we need this chart. We can agree.
Well, we
with
can,
consensus.
we can rack and stack them. Doug, if you're ready.
I'm just a couple comments in the process. Please, and I appreciate the fact, thank you for your comments about the review. I can have Mike speak a little bit about his discussion with Mr. Smith, because we wanted to kind of understand that as well. But to the point raised by one of the council members there, at this point, you're basically all you're doing is moving them as a semifinalist. You're not making a final decision at this point. And one of the questions we always ask the candidates to unpack is the circumstances about why they left their previous positions or any controversies. So you'll be able to get that at this point. And if you're comfortable with that decision and that background on any of these candidates and their departures, you can proceed. If you're not, then you don't necessarily proceed. So just please keep in mind, you're not making a final decision on any of these folks. But that being the case, I did want to have Michael, since he did have a chance to speak with Lee. I was traveling last week and I asked Michael to have a conversation with him. So I'll turn it over to Michael and he can kind of unpack that to provide a little more insight.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. I did have a conversation with Lee. I was in Hardyville, South Carolina, which is just north of Chatham County and Savannah. They have a very large board for a county. There was a change. It's partisan. So my understanding, it went from, Democrat to Republican or vice versa. It was more political. Obviously, he was there for 9+ years. So you make some friends and you make some enemies when you shake the tree and get apples down. So based on my understanding, I was the city manager just north of his community. I read everything in the paper. I did some research. I think it was more purely political. Again, disagreements and vision of moving the community forward. You know, and as Doug and I know, I mean, in this, it's an occupational hazard. If you haven't got fired or asked to resign, you don't have that badge of courage. So I wouldn't necessarily discount any applicant that was either fired or asked to leave, because that's just the nature of the beast in this work. So as Doug said, I think this is just the initial vetting process, and each candidate will be able to definitely give you a full explanation of the circumstances why they left a community.
Thank you, Michael. I was impressed with that resume, and he's from works in a coastal town, so that was kind of impressive to me. So, Doug, we have 6 right now that are going to the semifinals, right?
You have 6, although one of those, Mr. Robert Heminger, has decided to withdraw. He's decided he wants to stay in Texas. After all, he's got a couple other opportunities before him, and so my understanding is those are in Texas, and so he has decided to withdraw at this point. So we currently have 5 that are still in the pool. So there's still plenty of capacity left to pick up some additional folks out of this pool if you would like to advance. Sounds like there's at least several of you have spoken of highly that you want to learn more about. So. Mayor, I recognizing your time, I'm more than glad if there's consensus of your group to try to advance several of these folks forward. I'm more than glad to do that as opposed to going candidate by candidate, but I will defer to you based on your agenda and the rest of the things you have before you today, which way you'd like to proceed.
Personally, I'd rather go through and rack and stack them just like we did with the last group, and then the top 5 or 6 move on to the next phase if anyone has. Can I get consensus on that? Everybody agree with that? And 1s are good, 3s are bad?
That's correct. Yeah, 1 is like a golf score. Low score is what you're trying to get to. 1 is a candidate you're definitely interested in learning more about.
Okay.
2 is a candidate that you're generally okay learning more about. And 3 is a candidate that you're not interested in proceeding to the process.
Okay, if we can, Ray, are you online? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Ray, and we'll go Ray, Councilman Stevens, Councilman Gambaro, Councilman Miller, Vice Mayor, and me. Is that fine? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I'll just highlight the first candidate here, Anna Gibson. I put her on this list again. She did reapply. She was in the first round. There was not interest in proceeding with her, but I did just leave her name on there again. As I said, the last round that she was an applicant, there was not interest in proceeding. So if there's no interest there, we don't have to go any further. But I didn't want to, in full disclosure, let you know that she's applied. You've seen that background with her before.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You said that she was in the last round, but there was no interest in proceeding with her?
That's correct. She
From
was
who?
included.
Who
Yes,
was there no
we-
interest?
we-
From who was there no interest in proceeding with her?
She was not part of the 16 that the commission identified that you ranked.
And stacked in the first round.
Right, so we didn't make any decision with her one way or the other, right?
Well, she was not selected to even be considered to go further into that group of 16 that you narrowed down to 6. So
Okay, so then why are we reconsidering her now?
I just in full disclosure, I just put her name up there because she reapplied for the position. I did not present her information today because you had already looked at that before. But in disclosure, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware that she had reapplied.
Okay, delete that row.
Okay,
Well,
take care.
I'm not saying I want to delete it. What I'm trying to narrow down, because she did come before the council and was upset, visibly and audibly upset, because am I correct that there wasn't a specific slide dedicated to her in the actual presentation, or she wasn't, for whatever reason, she wasn't highlighted in the last presentation? I don't remember the exact qualm.
If I recall, I believe that's the issue, is that she was not highlighted as part of the presentation as other candidates were.
Okay,
We did receive her packet. We did review it. She didn't meet the criteria we were looking for, I don't think.
okay, so she wasn't, Mr. Thomas, she wasn't excluded from any charts or rankings or anything like that this council previously decided upon, correct?
So let me walk through the process. So what we have done, all the candidates let's go back to the meeting back in January. We submitted a list of all the candidates that applied for the position, including Ms. Gibson. we presented a subset of those group. There were several candidates that we did not think in our professional experience felt that had the background or skill set to do the work for the position you required based upon what you've told us you're looking for, the job description, things of that nature. That being said, we provided all of those candidates. There were several other candidates beyond her that we didn't necessarily have a slide on because we were focusing on those that we felt that were highly more likely to be of the skill sets you were looking for. But at the end of that presentation, after I did the presentation of all the candidates that Michael and I presented, I said to the council, you've also got other candidates that you've got background on that I didn't necessarily highlight in a presentation, and ask if there was any interest to advance or discuss any of those folks. And there was none raised. So we proceeded and moved forward with the list of the 16 folks that everybody had identified, 5 or 6 folks that they wanted to learn more about, and then we ranked those folks. So you had seen her application, but we did not believe, in SDR's opinion, that she had the background to be able to advance with a high degree of success for this opportunity. But we did offer that up to you to say, if you wanted to, we could bring up slides of any of those folks that we didn't present and talk through them. And there was not a desire to do that with her.
But thank you for that explanation, but did we actually rank her?
No, because as you may remember, so of the group that we presented, I think there were around 24 or so candidates we presented. From that, each one of you selected 3 or 4 or 5 that you wanted to learn more about. Some of those were repeat candidates that other council members had identified. And then those came into a list of 16. I can bring this up here. Those came up to a list of these candidates here that were ultimately ranked by you. And those were based upon each of your thoughts of who each council member advanced. So none of those candidates that were not on this list were ranked, including some that there were slides on.
Okay, thank you for that.
Make sense? Okay.
So are we good with deleting that row?
I think we just rank her.
Okay.
I don't think there's any harm in it.
All right, Councilman Stevens, you're first in the queue.
Yeah, thank you. Under the circumstances, because of my somewhat lengthy absence, I'm not comfortable, and I don't think it would be fair to the candidates at this point for me to select individuals. The city manager is sending me resumes, background, and whatever pertinent information, and I will review that. And when it comes time for an actual vote, I will be better prepared.
Okay, so you're not prepared to rack and stack any of these candidates?
No, Mr. Mayor, not at this time.
So, well, we're going to have to proceed without your vote, Ray. We're going to have to narrow it down, and then when we get our semifinalists, you can partake in the selection process then.
Yes, that's what I intended. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right, we're going to skip Councilman Stevens right now. So, Councilman Gambaro, you're first in the queue.
2.
Councilman Miller,
2.
I'm sorry.
Vice Mayor,
2.
and I'll go 3. Next in the queue is Miss Meek, Councilman Gambaro,
3.
Councilman Miller,
2.
Vice Mayor,
3.
and me, 3. Councilman Gambaro for Larry Tibbs,
3.
Councilman Miller,
3.
Vice Mayor,
3.
and I'm a 3 also. Mr. Uresti, Councilman Gambaro,
3.
3.
Vice Mayor,
2.
and I'll go 1. Mr. Uresti is a hard-working man. Melissa Evans, Councilman Gambaro,
3.
3 for me as well.
3.
and I'm also a 3. Mr. Brillhart, Councilman Gambaro,
3.
3. Councilman Miller,
3.
3.
wow, I wanted to move forward. 1. Mr. Pilloff, Councilman Gabriel,
3.
3.
3.
and 1.
I'm sorry, 2 on that one. I apologize.
Go on, Mr. Pilla for Vice Mayor. Sonia,
2.
Councilman Gambaro,
1.
1.
1.
2. Hansberg,
1.
1.
2.
2. Rico, is it Rico? Rico?
Ricchio.
Ricchio. Councilman Gambaro,
3.
3 for me.
2.
and I'm a 3. Lee Smith,
3.
1.
2.
and I'm a 1. Okay, rack and stack them.
Okay, so, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got
Top six move forward.
6.
Are we
Those
good with that?
individuals?
Vice Mayor,
So how many do we have total this round?
we have 5 from the last.
I think it was 11.
11.
You selected 6, but we're down to 5 from before. So with this 6, you'd be at 11. You've got, if you wanted one more, you could, if you wanted to get, we typically have up to 12 semifinalists as part of the process if you wanted to include Mr. Brillhart, but there's 3, well, there's 3 of you have identified 3, so I'm a little concerned about whether there's sufficient
Yeah.
support there. But if you wanted to learn more about him, you could certainly incorporate that.
I skewed that result a little bit, I guess. So we good for those top 6 moving forward to be added to the other? So that'd be 11, will be 1 short of the 12 you recommend? Or we can add Brillhart if you want. It doesn't
No,
matter.
I think the list is, quite candidly, I would eliminate the ones that have the 2 3s. I mean, I think, I'm hoping that we can come to a consensus on this board.
Yep.
And if we've got 3s for people, that does concern me. 2 3s, I should say.
I guess it's
There's 3
taking
threes.
Councilmember Stevens as the nulls as 0 as part of that average ranking. I don't think it changes the average, but I was a little
Yeah.
confused by the numbers that were coming out at the end.
Yeah. So it's not going to have, just like these up here are going to show 0. So,
Gotcha.
those it's counting what a vote has been cast on in the process. So, it's an average, obviously, of those. So it's not even weighted. This is just kind of a high level triage. So to the council member's comment, remember, and I respect the fact when there's some 3s that raises a red flag. I guess the question I would always add, is that, remember, you're not making a final selection now. All you're doing at this point is learning more about these candidates. And if you find that you've determined that there's something there that maybe you missed or just you weren't aware of, or the way they've described it make it feel differently, you can make that decision going forward and decide to advance. You're absolutely right, though, council member. I mean, hopefully there's consensus on where you're going. But I know in the last ranking, there were some folks that were kind of spread apart in different categories. So my sense is you'll learn more about these candidates going forward. If you're comfortable with at least allowing them to provide their additional information, it gets easier to vet those to the 3 or 5 that you want to eventually bring in at the next round.
I think this list is representative of the discussion we just had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
so
So we're good to go with that 6?
I'm good with it.
All right, that's what you got. That's what you got, Mr. Thomas. Next stage, go ahead and run through that real quick.
Gotcha. Is that the next step showing up there?
Yes, sir.
Slide? Gotcha. So we're going to be in this round right now. We've got some of the folks that are working on their semifinals material. I will follow up with the additional candidates that you've just selected today. And the next step will be they will complete that work. We will submit material from their cover letters, their questionnaire, the cover letters, resumes, questionnaire responses, and the links to the video interviews. We'll get that back to you to review. And give you some time to review that. And your next meeting is scheduled for March 11th. At that, we will have expected that you will have reviewed that material and you'll be able to vote in a process. We'll talk through each of the candidates that of the 11 or 12, or I guess we're at 11 at this stage that are in the process. At that point, we'll be looking for you to help narrow this pool down to somewhere between 3 to 5 folks that you'd be asking to participate in the on-site interview process. So that will happen on the 11th. I, by chance, will be up in your area. I'm doing a strategic planning retreat for a neighboring community, and I've got to be up there for the 12th and the 13th for that. So I'm going to come up anyway, so I'll meet you in person for that meeting and help you walk through that process. From there, once we've determined how many folks you've got that you're selecting by the 3 or 5, based on where we stand now, we'll start laying out and seeing if we can put together a schedule for where your interview process will be. And we've talked a little bit about what those 2 days look like. So in the interest of time, I won't go through that again today, but at my meeting on the 11th, we'll walk through that. And I will work with your staff to try to come up with a schedule now that we've landed on these additional semifinalists that can coordinate with your schedule for the on-site interviews. So we'll have some dates proposed that your staff will work with you on, and we'll try to get those nailed down before the 11th.
All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time, and I think you got us quite a few better candidates this time around. So we'll move forward, and we'll have us a city manager before summer, hopefully.
All righty, great. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck with the rest of your meeting. We appreciate your work on it this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Doug.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're moving on to E2, the presentation of the Flagler Humane Society.
Do public comment?
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Pause that. Public comment, my bad. Anyone that has a public comment concerning the candidates that were just presented? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Denise Henry, P Section. I'm very disappointed in Mr. Thompson. I know Anna Gibson personally, and she was told to reapply. And again, he did not ever call and speak to her to ask her to discuss her qualifications, yet he spent time talking to other people. And that's very wrong for a headhunter not to give a candidate equal time to explain their positions. But I do thank you for putting her on the list and giving her a chance, because she is a Palm Coast resident.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I don't know.
State your name for the record.
Yeah, Chantal Pröninger. I don't know any of those candidates, but as I was listening to all that, what I thought was, you're trying to change somebody based on qualification. So you are looking for somebody who is highly skilled. And I'm wondering if having skills in this and that is really what you want, because the person who was let go was based on the qualification. So I would suggest that you look more into that area. And also, if qualification is very important, human skills as well. I grew up in a city in France where they hired the best skilled city manager, but that person nobody could get along with. And finally, they isolated that person in an office and gave no job to do, and that person quit on himself because they could not fire him. His work was done. But what I'm saying is qualification is important, human skills is important as well. So if you can look at that as you continue the process.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, I'll come back to the dais. We're going to move on to item E2, presentation by the Flagler Humane Society.
Mayor, City Council, just as Miss Amy is coming to the presentation to get started, just wanted to remind you that you requested this presentation based off of some feedback. I believe Ms. Pontieri sits as an ex officio member on the Flagler Humane Society Board per the request after the joint city-county meeting. And we do have a contract with the Humane Society that is expiring at the end of this fiscal year that we will look to start negotiating with them here soon.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Amy Caratenuto, and I appreciate the opportunity to come share a glimpse to Flagler Humane Society. Not sure if anybody was around.
Ma'am, could you speak up a
sorry?
little or get closer
Oh,
to the mic?
mic. Sorry.
There you go, pull it back,
You can
pull
pull
it
Better?
to
the whole box towards you. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Let's see, not sure if anybody was around this long ago, but Flagler Humane Society was founded in 1980. Then in 1982, we built the building that is up in the top corner there of the presentation. And in 2004, the building that we're in now, the 15,000 square foot building, was constructed. And we are and always have been the only open admission, full service animal shelter in Flagler County. Our mission is to transform animals' lives through compassionate care and services, outstanding educational programs, and advocacy for all animals. And here is one example of that mission in action. This is Bentley. Bentley came into us, a very sick puppy, severe mange, skin infections, parasites, and with 3 weeks of heavy-duty treatment and care, he looked like the second picture there. So he is even more beautiful now. And here's our intake numbers for last year. As you can see, it's mostly dogs and cats, but we handle every species that needs us. And here's the jurisdictions that the animals come from, primarily Palm Coast. And people ask if we are no-kill. No-kill is a benchmark originally coined by Best Friends a little over 20 years ago. To be considered no-kill, an organization must save at least 90% of the animals that come in. And some groups do this by just not accepting all animals. We accept all animals, and we work tirelessly to get them healthy, to get them back to their original owners, or to get them into new loving homes. So of the 67 counties in Florida, we are one of only 13 counties that are deemed no-kill. And our numbers are actually closer to 95% live release rate, which is really unheard of for an open admission shelter. And we save animals that a lot of shelters would not. The little orange kitty down there on the bottom is Tuna. Tuna came into us with feline infectious peritonitis, which is oftentimes a death sentence, but we treat FIP, and Tuna responded remarkably well to a new groundbreaking treatment, and he got adopted last week. The young puppies in the picture there are two separate stories of puppies that came to us with parvovirus. Parvovirus is my specialty. I take them home and we get them nursed back to health, and they usually get better relatively quickly. We get a lot of neonate orphan kittens. Our animal care manager, Kendra, takes them home and feeds them throughout the night. And we get a lot of older animals that are abandoned that have health issues. And so we end up being pretty good friends with the veterinarians down at the Emergency Hospital in Port Orange, Flagler Animal Hospital, University of Florida, and more. Here's a picture of our dedicated staff. You have to love what you do to be in this kind of work. And there's several formulas to figure out like roughly what the animal population is in an area. I believe I used the AVMA formula. So we have just over 50,000 households in Flagler County. And if you use that formula, we figure probably about 70,000 pet dogs and cats in Flagler County. Then the second set of numbers there are when animals come to the shelter, their average length of stay is a little over a month. And it ends up that our hard costs end up being about $500 for dogs or puppies and about $344 per cat or kitten. And that's only if they come to us without any illnesses or injuries. And that also doesn't count overhead such as, insurance, utility bills, that kind of thing. So that's just our hard per animal cost. And for that, we are compensated for about a fourth of that from our government contracts. And this slide shows our animal intake numbers for the last decade. You might be surprised to see that although Flagler County's human population has risen substantially, the intake numbers have not. This is thanks to FHS providing resources toward data-driven solutions that keep people and pets together. The trend among industry professionals is to focus on preventing animals from needing to be rescued in the first place. A quote from UC Davis Shelter Medicine Program states, "It's interesting and kind of counterintuitive, but increases in human populations in a community have not been correlated with increases in shelter animal intakes. And this is especially true where best practices have been implemented." FHS provides more than just sheltering of homeless animals. In order to keep people and pets together, we offer things like low-cost and free spay-neuter. There's also a county rebate to incentivize people to sterilize their pets. Owners can apply for a county rebate no matter where they've had their pet sterilized, and then we send them that rebate. We do wellness clinics by appointment, which help for issues like chronic ear infections and things like that. We also do a Saturday vaccine clinic, which covers diagnostics like heartworm testing, Feluke testing, all vaccines, dewormers, and such. We also implant microchips, which can be a pet's ticket home if they get lost. We do that for free on Mondays. We have manicure Mondays also, and we're able to clip the nails of the most uncooperative pets with our experience. And when the time comes for an owner to have to make that difficult decision, our skilled staff offers compassion. We welcome pet owners to stay with their pets for the time so that they can see how peaceful the process really is. We do also offer end-of-life services at no charge for people that are adopting a senior pet that may not have much time left, and that helps get the animal into a loving home, even if it is just for a short time. Obviously, getting lost pets reunited with their families is our #1 priority. So we've always had a lost and found. We offer 24-hour emergency response. For certain areas, we do cruelty investigations. When our officers pick up a stray animal, the first thing they do is check for microchips and ID. If there's no ID, they go door to door to see, do you know who this pet belongs to try to get the animals home before they even come into the shelter. If they do bring them into the shelter, then the animals are placed on our own Lost and Found Facebook page, as well as our website. Grounded in science, TNVR is successfully practiced in communities across the world, in every landscape, every type of community, big city, little city, rural. Trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, stabilizes community cat populations humanely. It saves taxpayer dollars, and it addresses neighborhood concerns, and it helps the entire community reach a solution that benefits everybody. Our officers educate the public. We ask that the Palm Coast officers educate the public so that cats can return back to the environment where they came from. Once sterilized, they lose the negative behaviors, and sterilized cats will keep the other cats out of the area. So this is, again, why we ask that Palm Coast truly endorse and make TNVR the standard for unsocialized cats. We provide programs like Pause to Read, which volunteers have dogs at the library, and children that may have trouble reading can read to the dogs, so it's really cute. We host summer camps featuring guest speakers like baby goats and horses and chicks and such. And then they do a field trip on Fridays, so the kids learn and have a blast. Flagler County Emergency Management lists me as the coordinator of Emergency Support Function, or ESF 17. which means that our staff sets up and mans the pet-friendly emergency evacuation shelters in the schools during any type of declared emergency. That's on top of the animals that are still at the shelter. We at FHS actually were recognized by the Humane Society of the United States as opening one of the very first pet-friendly evacuation shelters in the entire country back in the 90s. So services beyond Flagler County, we often get requests from the Humane Society of the United States or other partner organizations to accept animals from less fortunate shelters. So we help a lot of individual animals, plus we're deeply involved in strengthening animal protection laws throughout the state. At least once a year during session, members of our staff go to Tallahassee. I actually ran into some of the Palm Coast City officials last year at the Capitol. I've testified in front of both the Senate and the House committees. This year, we're supporting a bill that strengthens animal abandonment laws and also a bill that provides for tougher penalties in cases of blatant animal abuse. Stronger local ordinances like mandatory spay-neuter would certainly help pet overpopulation as well. So when an owner comes to us to surrender a pet, the first thing we do is ask them, is there anything we can do to help you keep your pet? We've offered everything from help putting up fences to help with landlord pet rent deposits. We've loaned crates, we've done temporary housing, we have a food bank, anything we can do to keep families together. We have one of the largest social media followings in Flagler County. Hopefully everybody here already follows us on Facebook and Instagram. We have a lot of great YouTube videos, and we have a podcast with Flagler Broadcasting called Speaking of Animals. A few quick details about our building. Our facility is a lot larger than it looks from the front. It's 15,000 square feet. We have designated areas for adoption, for lost pets, for quarantine. And then on those occasions when we have a large abuse case confiscation, like we did last August, where we had 37 animals of all kinds of species, from cicada tortoises to snakes to pigs, we adapt and we become creative with our space, and we provide proper housing for each species and its own unique needs. Moving forward, we're hoping to engage our government partners by inviting all of our government partners to the shelter for a quarterly update. To let you know things like, last year we had a record number of adoptions, 2,157 adoptions. For those who can't meet with us in person or by Zoom, we've put out a quarterly report that I'll pass out however I can get to you, called Paw Partners. We're gonna start putting those out quarterly just to keep lines of communication open. But I will try, I don't know how I get them to you, just pass them over there, or? Okay, I'll get those to you when I'm done.
Thank you.
So we ask those who care about animals to help us educate, help us pass stronger local ordinances, help us provide resources to those who need the resources to get their pets sterilized or to keep their pets. Rescue sheltering alone is not a viable solution to address animal welfare in any community. We have a dedicated board of directors, and we're developing a 5-year strategic plan to address our needs, the community's needs, and expected growth. The Flagler Humane Society is the first line of defense for animals, and we are also the heart of our community's support system for animals. I invite everyone in here to come tour the shelter. We're open 7 days a week, 2 nights a week. We're open till 7 p.m. So please fit it into your schedule for a visit. If I'm not available to give you a tour, one of our dedicated staff will give you a tour. So I really would just love everybody to stop by. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Amy, if you could stay there for a minute in case
Okay.
we have any questions. Do we have any questions from the council? Vice Mayor?
I do, yes. So I want to talk about the finances because my concern is the overcapacity. And when I look at the chart that shows the intakes, it doesn't seem that it's fluctuated much. So you've been over capacity for a while.
We really, I don't know where this huge catastrophic language started about being over capacity. All shelters run full, you just do. But as far as over capacity, we may have, if we've got 56 kennels and two real-life rooms for the dogs, if we have 70 dogs, maybe it's, right now we've got 2 different litters of puppies, so they don't need 1 cage each, so all shelters run relatively full, but we're not bursting at the seams like has been talked about. If you come and you may see a dog behind the front desk, that doesn't necessarily mean we're that crowded, it's just, it helps market that animal.
Well,
So-
respectfully, Amy, at the last meeting, there was a joint county-city meeting, and it was admitted that there were capacity issues. So I understand what you're saying about all shelters running over capacity, but this seems that, to me, that this has been like I said, an issue that's been ongoing for quite some time, and it's a recognized issue. I'm not chastising the Humane Society for it. I'm trying to drill down on the numbers, the dollars, what the city is paying for, where it's been going, and what the plan has been to set monies aside to expand capacity, because I don't know that that's been happening. So to my questions, from your presentation, it says it costs about $500 to take care of each dog. What is that based on?
That's based on how long they stay, so you count the cleaning and animal care staff. That is based on their spay-neuter surgery, their medical throughout, they are all fully vaccinated, they're given their preventions every month. And it's, based on food and other supplies. And we are keeping animals longer, so I think we look more crowded even though more animals aren't really coming in. We keep animals longer, hopefully until they can get adopted.
And how much does the city of Palm Coast pay per intake?
The city of Palm Coast pays $95 per dog or cat, $25 for wildlife, and $50 for livestock.
Okay, and then the other animal, because we have our own animal control officers, but you all have animal control officers that service outside of the city, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If a resident comes and drops off an animal, who pays for that?
It depends on if they're dropping off their own pet, then the cities aren't billed for that. If they're dropping off a stray, they have to turn in their driver's license and tell where they found the stray, and then the city is billed the $95 for that.
Okay, so if a resident drops off their own animal, do they pay that $95 fee?
We do ask them to pay a surrender fee.
Okay. So it seems that, let me ask you this. How long has the contract between the city and the Humane Society been in place?
Since before the city was a city, I think 1982.
Always been the fee, or has the fee changed recently?
Well, obviously, inflation, I think it was $25 back in the day, but the $95 is far too low. We won't be able to keep going at that rate for sure. Right now, the county pays $132 per animal. The other shelters that I've researched are more in the $150 per animal range.
Okay, so how long has the $95 fee been in place?
Oh, maybe 4 or 5 years. I'd have to look to make sure, but somewhere in there.
Do you know how that was determined?
Based on what other shelters, I always research what other shelters are charging their government entities, and based on we can only eat so much. It's not based on how much it costs us, because it costs us far more. It's loosely based on the first 3 days when they're strays, and they, ownership hasn't become ours yet.
Okay. So I'm assuming, well, let me ask you, the other shelters that you've looked at, are they operating at a loss? I mean, are your costs per pet that much more expensive than the other shelters?
No,
Okay.
no, shelters just offer it. We operate at a loss because we also do fundraising, and this is our mission. Yes, financially, we'd be much better off without the Palm Coast contract, financially. But we want to still take care of the city's animals, the most animals we can possibly help.
Okay, and then my last question is with regards to how certain animals are handled. I'll be honest, I don't really want to get into, the enormous amount of emails that I've received regarding concerns of how animals have been treated, things that have been seen on the property. We're going to hear from some residents who have some concerns and who have put a lot of time and energy into researching surrounding shelters. My very, I guess, fact-based question, though, is when an animal comes in, what is the determination as to whether or not that animal should be put down?
We hardly ever euthanize any animals, really. Almost all of our euthanasias at this point are owner request, when an owner brings in a very, very old animal, and like I said in my spiel, they stay with the pet, just like if they went to a veterinarian to have their pet euthanized. Almost all of our euthanasias are that at this point. I'm happy to share all of our, I'm happy to share all of our records as far as when an animal is determined to be too dangerous to go out into the public or too ill to even go through treatment. I'm happy to share those records, but I've also got records of many, many thousands of dollars spent at other hospitals besides our own veterinarians that work roughly 5 days a week. I'm happy to share all those records because euthanasia decisions are very difficult and it's gut-wrenching, and it's very difficult when professionals, I've been in this for 40 years. I've been in animal welfare. We have a very skilled, well-trained staff, some of which have been in animal welfare for going on 20 years. So the decisions are difficult, and when they're questioned by people that don't understand, it makes it even harder on the staff. So.
Yeah, no, I can understand that, but when I receive emails talking about pets that were euthanized upon being at the shelter for 24 hours, and I don't know if it's true or not, but
it's not true.
But that's what I'm asking.
Absolutely.
So if there are records that you all keep,
I'm happy to share.
Yeah, please. And I'll reach out directly for those. It's good to know that you have those types of records so that we can sift through what's true and what's not true.
The only time an animal would be euthanized right away like that is, yesterday we had a vulture that had been hit by a car that came in just mutilated, so he was euthanized right away. So severe injuries like that can't even, couldn't be treated by a veterinarian, yes, we're going to end an animal suffering.
Okay. And then I've seen a few times where we've brought over animals from neighboring shelters. Mm-hmm. Why is that done?
Because we're asked, like I said in my thing, we're asked. There's a lot of shelters, I wish some of this attention would be on these other shelters. There's shelters up towards the Panhandle that don't even have a facility. Their animals are kept in crates at a gas station. There's no adoption protocols. Animals are facing certain death if their owners don't come for them. So the Humane Society of the United States knows our shelter and has asked us to take animals periodically. They're usually animals that are pretty quickly adopted, or sometimes it's animals that are shut down, scared, and we can bring them around. Everybody knows that's our specialty, is to take scared animals and make them adoptable. So, and that's what I'm saying about our capacity issue is not the catastrophic language that's been used. Right now, I wish I'd brought a video. Right now, there's 6 or 7 empty kennels in our back section. We've got a lot of empty cat cages right now. It's not always like that. It just depends on if we have a big cruelty case or something. But we have times where there's plenty of room to help more animals.
So what's the capital plan to expand?
I'd have to let my board talk on that. We're definitely exploring our options. We've had some conversations. First thing is the strategic plan. And there are plans to expand, but expanding our programs to help the problem before animals need to be rescued has always been the priority. I'd rather help people keep their pets than just keep building more kennels. That's not the answer.
Well, I agree with you that there's a problem that we could probably maybe address legislatively, but what you have control over, because you can educate until you're blue in the face, but dogs and cats are still going to be dropped off, and apparently farm animals too.
Yes.
So it's incumbent upon you as the Humane Society to have a plan in place and to start financially planning to expand. So my question is, I don't feel like, candidly, this has been contemplated prior to the last year or so, maybe. And so if that's the case, how do we throw that into hyperdrive to have a capital plan in place and see what financially you all are going to need? I know I've been asking for this for at least a few months, and I still haven't seen anything. So maybe your board is working on it, and I don't know about that. But it's a concern, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed by the Humane Society sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think expansion would definitely have to be a joint effort. A decent shelter is going to be several $1 million, and that would have to be, we'd have to get some help with that. We can't do that all, with just our fundraisers. So we would need commitment from our government partners and work together towards some type of expansion. But we do have the land for it, and we have the expertise and the energy for it. So it really would take a partnership, and like I said, maybe some further conversations with our board and you.
Well, I'll tell you the same thing I tell all the people in the back, our staff members. We need to see the plan. We need to see the plan. We need to see the numbers before we can just start saying, sure, we'll throw you some money, or we'll help you out here and there. So that's what I would need to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Miller?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So, as the Vice Mayor said, it's difficult to get into a situation where you're kind of trying to parse through anecdotal evidence about stories of how your facility is run. And so I don't want to do you a disservice by assuming everything that I've been told is true. Right. But it does make me pause. It makes me question it. It makes me wonder why you as a partner versus somebody else. And so I think that, as the Vice Mayor said, we need more transparency in terms of the money. We need a plan in terms of how you're going to get to where we need to be before we can commit to those things that you're asking in terms of your partners. We can't really, I don't want to get into the anecdotal stuff, the stories, but they concern me a lot. And so I'm going to need assurances, that's not the way your facility
Step one,
operates.
please, let's get together, come out, take a tour, because there's a lot of things that are being said that are nowhere near true. Social media, I'm sure everybody's been the victim of social media bullies. And come to the shelter. Like I said, we're open 7 days a week. You can walk in anytime, and I'm happy to share all of the numbers.
I think some of my biggest concerns are that a lot of this information is coming from people that worked at your facility. So if not them to know what happens there, then who,
Well, I think we've all known disgruntled former employees, disgruntled former volunteers. So it's, like I said, things are being said that are absolutely not truth. I'm being accused of money laundering and some of the most ridiculous things. So it's not true. But if you choose to believe it, that's up to you. But I would love to have any and all of you come to the shelter. I'm happy to show you the ins and outs. You can come unannounced anytime.
I have a question as a kind of a follow-up to Councilman Miller's comments. Has there been any change in your hiring or retention process based on incidents that have occurred related to any animal cruelty. I mean, we know that there's an animal control officer right now being prosecuted by the state. They decided to press charges and move forward with those. So has there been any type of, like I said, hiring or retention policy change based on that or any other incidents?
We've always hired people that might need a second chance, you know, if somebody has if they have a past, as long as it's the past, they're still hired. There's a lot of shelters that have inmates that are specifically brought from the prison to help take care of the animals. There's a show called Pit Bulls and Parolees. So as far as somebody's past, no, I would still hire somebody that has a past. As far as the question about the officer, those charges are totally not fair. That dog was well taken care of from the get-go. So I actually have pictures of her now. She's fat and adopted, and she was well taken care of that night. That's just, it's a bit of a witch hunt, to be honest.
Councilman Gambaro?
The other council members asked a lot of the same questions I was going to ask, so
All
I
right.
concur with a lot of the questions and the.
All right, thank you, sir. Who is that? Please silence your phones. Amy, I requested, I don't know if I requested yesterday or this morning, I asked for a list of your board members. And I also asked for your bylaws. Now, this is a very touchy subject to me personally. My wife owns a pet care service, and we care dearly about animals. We have 4 cats in our house right now and 1 German Shepherd, and all of them are pretty much rescues. My biggest concerns are the Humane Society is a national organization, right?
There is a National Humane Society, but none of the local humane societies are
So-
truly affiliated. We're partners, but we're not affiliated.
So you guys don't report to a higher headquarters?
No.
Okay. Well, some of my issues is, when I asked for the bylaws for your organization, you stated that they're proprietary. And I have already run into one nonprofit in this community, and I'm very leery of any nonprofits. I'm only involved with 2 nonprofits, and that's because I'm a veteran. So I have a real issue when you say that your bylaws are proprietary. That should be open. For one, just looking at the list of names, is Miss Rebecca Reynolds and Mr. John Reynolds, are they husband and wife?
John Reynolds is here today.
Okay. Are there any other husband and wife duo on the board?
Richard and Linda, which Richard's here, I saw.
Okay. So I have a real problem with that because in most boards of directors, that is called nepotism. And I don't feel that we need that in this type of organization. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, not counting yourself. So you have 6 people that are actually board members. You are the executive, right?
Right now, yes.
Okay, so you have 6 people. 4 of those people are a husband and wife duo. That is unacceptable for me personally and professionally. So I feel that needs to be addressed. And also the bylaws. I have a hard time giving any money from our city coffers to any organization that will not be transparent and show me their bylaws. And when there's possibility, well, it is nepotism. If it's 4 people from 2 families sitting on a board of 6, that's nepotism. They control the board. Those 4 people control the board. And I have a hard time with that. So, and we're going to have another presentation by ARF, and they've gone around and they've done a lot of research. And what I would suggest is, 1, I would like to have the bylaws. 2, I would like to see the Humane Society do something about the membership of that board. Possibly adding another person where it's not, are those 6 people, are they all voting members of the board?
Yes, but we do have openings. We've invited a couple other folks to join the board at this point. We're just not fully. We don't have
Are you a
full board.
voting member in your position?
I'm not, no.
You are not a voting member in your position, okay. So that's some of the things I'd like to see, because there are a lot of allegations, and I'm not gonna, I have to deal in facts. Same thing as Vice Mayor. She deals in facts. And the fact one is the bylaws are not open to the public. Fact two, you got two couples, husband and wife, sitting on a board of 6. So I have a real problem with that. Any follow-up from the city council?
Yeah, so you all are a 50c3 nonprofit, correct?
501c3,
Yeah, bylaws should be public record. So,
I think Vince is here somewhere. The attorney on our board advised us not to at this point. We
Well-
may have discussion later, but this came to us last night. So as far as providing them last night, he
Well-
said to hold off.
Well, we're going to have to figure it out, because your budget, your contract with us is due at the end of the year.
Right.
So
And that's fine. If the city doesn't want to contract with us, like I said, financially, we'd be better off. We want to help the most animals. We can do the most to help the most animals. But financially, the Palm Coast contract costs us quite a bit.
Councilman Miller? I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Mayor, just wanted, for the record, Councilmember Stevens jumped off.
Okay, he's off. Councilman Stevens is off the teleconference. Councilman Miller?
Mr. Mayor, to your point about the bylaws, and maybe the city attorney can speak to this, but I think as a funding mechanism that those should be provided to us contingent upon the funding, and I'm not sure, just want to double check that that's something that would be legally appropriate. But to me, if we're giving money, then I want to see those bylaws.
No, absolutely. If I may speak through the mayor.
Go right ahead, Council.
I'm not familiar with that. Obviously, she advises they were advised by legal counsel. My understanding of the nonprofit law is that the bylaws should be available based on their filing status. So if there's some exemption to that, I'm not aware of that. I've never seen that before. I sit on the board of several nonprofits.
I guess my question, though, is can we withhold funding contractually on the basis of requiring the bylaws?
So I would frame it differently. So yes, sir. I think y'all can require as part of the partnership and part of the collaboration to see the bylaws. So that is a reasonable request for a nonprofit to provide their bylaws.
Thank you.
Well, we all want to take care of the animals in the community, and we will get to our presentation, and we have quite a few of the county representatives here, and we are willing to work. We were actually, me and the city manager was talking yesterday about property for another shelter. So, it's just going to have to be a partnership, and there's things we have to do. But, the allegations that I've heard, and I try to stay away from that, but, that's why I am not willing to go to the Humane Society, because I don't want to deal with that. And I think all animals should be treated, with care and compassion.
And they are at Flagler Humane
Okay.
Society.
Well, there's a lot of people in this audience that are going to get up and say quite contrary to what you're saying, Amy, just so you know.
And most of them have not been to the shelter. Some of them
And
have
I-
for a short time, so.
And I would ask that when we open this up to public comment, that everyone be respectful, and not anything inflammatory, right? I'm a country boy. Anything else, Councilman Miller?
I think Councilman Miller
I
wants
was just going to say that I would view this, do not view this as everybody coming down on you. View this as an opportunity to do better, right? If the mission is for the animals, then we can do better. Scrutiny, being under scrutiny means that if you're doing the job, as you say,
Yeah,
then
then it'll come
you should
out.
be able to stand up to the scrutiny. So
For sure.
I would look at it as a way to do a better service to the pets and animals of this county.
Thank you for that. So I do want to thank you for coming in. I know that there's been a lot of heat, so to speak, on the Flagler Humane Society, but I think that it's well placed, to be quite honest with you. People care about animals in our community. They want to make sure that they're being well taken care of. I will tell you, it is not helping you at all, or the Flagler Humane Society, by withholding bylaws. The monies that we pay to the Humane Society to care for animals are these people's monies. They're the taxpayers' dollars. So I quite candidly don't have much tolerance for the response that, well, our attorney told us. their tax dollars. I think there needs to be a degree of transparency that is elevated based on that. We pride ourselves in the city very much with the fact that we have all of our budget sheets online for anybody to go and drove through at any time. So I think that I would hope that we don't have to jump through hoops to get those bylaws.
Right.
And I would hope that moving forward, and you know, when we hear the next presentation, there's going to be a comment that on a couple of the nonprofit, I guess, rating websites, that the Flagler Humane Society isn't rated very high because of a lack of financial transparency. So again, I don't know the veracity of that, but all I'm saying is I think in order to help the situation, and to Councilman Miller's point, let's be better, because there's a lot of concern out there. And like I said, I think it's well placed, but I really hope that there's a change of heart from your board or from your attorney, whomever it may be, on giving us those bylaws, because it's our taxpayers that pay for these services.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One-
All of our budgets and all of our numbers, everything's on our website as well, where it just says by the numbers. So that's all on our website. Our bylaws aren't. But like I said, that was a request that came in late in the day yesterday, so.
One fundamental of most 501c3s is no nepotism. And I'm almost certain that would be in your bylaws, so I'd like to see that. But any other questions? With that being said, thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
We will open this up for public discussion. As I mentioned, please be as kind as possible and no.
Gina Weiss, Quail Hollow. I agree, some issues have to be cleared up. I see a lot of people that I know here that are very passionate about animals. So
Speaking
don't
to the
shoot
mic, Miss Gina.
Don't shoot the messenger in what I'm going to say. But my spouse and I visited the Humane Society a couple of months ago as I was invited to tour the facility. Amy, the executive director, introduced herself, and having her speak about the animals and the staff, you knew she was the perfect person to run the facility. She loves the animals and would do anything to get them adopted. She also explained the need for a larger facility and additional and updated outside areas for the animals. She loves her staff and makes sure that they are treated with respect and appreciation. Their interactions with Amy also revealed that they love her and enjoy working there. She explained many of the younger staff that it's their first job and that they work long hours without much compensation, except for the love and dedication they have for the animals. She does hire people who want to give back to the community, to have a sense of self-worth, to want to feel proud, to want to be accepted. When we went on a tour of the facility, we saw kennels filled with dogs and cats, many of who wanted our attention as we walked by. I guess they were saying, "Take me home, I want to be loved by someone." It was enough to make teardrops fall from my eyes. I saw two tiny senior dogs in a room that I was told that their family had moved to another state and was not able to take them. They were crying and barking. It was almost too much to bear. I met Willie, a 9-year-old part pitty, part boxer. He had one eye and looked at me as if he was saying, "Are you the one that's going to take me home today?" I went back to the Humane Society the following week to drop off food, blankets, toys. I bought Willie a big bed and a giant lamb chop. To my surprise, Willie was brought up front. He dived into his new bed and hugged his lamb chop. I was going to adopt Willie the following week, and to my surprise, when I went back, he was adopted, and so were the two little tiny senior dogs who were left behind by their owners. I cannot understand for the life of me how we as a community cannot raise enough necessary funds to build an extension to this community and spruce up the play areas that the animals so badly need. It made me wonder, what kind of people are we? But when I see the staff members in my mind's eyes, busily going about their work, helping animals, I realize maybe we do as a community have in us the means to do God's work. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Gina.
Good morning, Candy Stevens. I live in the P section. I also am an animal lover, Mayor Mike. I have been involved with 2 rescues. I have 3 rescues. I have 2 now. We had to put one down a year ago with cancer. So I have been extremely involved in rescues. And just correct me if I'm wrong, but did she not just say that the contract that they have with us as a city, they lose money? So that sounds to me like they don't care if they get money from us or not, to me. And that didn't sit well with me either. I know in St. Augustine where I work, they have a SMART place, like it's called SMART, like what Caroline Johnson does, and they have their own facility where they rescue the animals and adopt them out. If the Humane Society doesn't want our money, then maybe we should help Caroline get her own standalone place where they can do better. If they don't want to give us their bylaws, where our money's going, that is nepotism. I was shocked when I heard that. I hadn't heard that before. I've never seen that on a board where husband and wife sit and they're more than 50% of the whole matter. So I've been to the Flagler Humane Society here when I was a new resident because I didn't know where to go. My dog got stung by something after a hurricane, and I had just moved here. And as a new resident, most of us, that would be the first place you would go when you have an emergency because most vets just don't take walk-in new customers as an emergency. I was shocked when I walked in there. There was dogs in kennels in the hallway, dogs crying here, dogs crying there, and I realized that they cry. But they don't always have a vet on staff. I don't think that you guys realize that. They don't always have a vet on staff. So I didn't have any help there. I had to find somewhere else to go, and that's the vet that I've used ever since, actually. Another dog got bit by a snake a couple years ago, and I was at work. It was a poisonous snake, and I was at work. My son called me, and my son, being 20, didn't know where else to go but the Humane Society. They had somebody sitting in the front that couldn't even formulate a thought or a sentence to tell him where to go, what to do. They had nobody on staff. They don't have anti-venom, any of those things. So I'm just saying, maybe our dollars could be spent somewhere else better, if they don't want to do better. I'm all for animal rescue myself, so I think that we should delve more into this like you guys are doing, and I appreciate everything that you all are doing so far. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ann Thompson.
Pull the mic down, will you, Ann, please? There you go.
In December, a compassionate citizen found a stray puppy and after taking it to the vet, brought it to the shelter after hours. The vet visit revealed a potential neurological disorder, and that information was relayed to the responding Flagler Sheriff's deputy. The deputy, acting with care, secured the puppy in a crate overnight at the shelter, believing it would be safe until the shelter opened. What followed was both shocking and unacceptable. The puppy was euthanized. Disregarding established policies and laws, decide to reunite stray animals with their owner. This blatant disregard for protocol is deeply concerning. The vet's visit reported that there was no rabies, but they decided that the puppy did have rabies, and that is why he was euthanized. He displayed no aggressive behavior and could have been quarantined while posting to find an owner. This owner could have shed light on his medical issues. The deputy, who acted with compassion and followed protocol, was reportedly written up. This is what the citizen was told by shelter staff. Not only was informing a citizen of a deputy's write-up unprofessional, it also sends a message to our law enforcement officers that acts of kindness and concern for animal welfare could be punished. This incident occurred amidst serious criminal charges against the shelter's animal control officer, raising further questions about the shelter's operational integrity and motives. The message being sent to our deputies is that they are now at risk of being accused of allowing animals to suffer if they attempt to provide care. If bringing animals to the shelter after hours now places innocent deputies and citizens in the crossfire of an apparently hostile organisation, it creates a dangerous and untenable situation. The deputies should not have to fear repercussions for acting with compassion. This incident highlights a critical need for immediate change. The current system is clearly broken. The safety and well-being of animals, as well as the professional and integrity of deputies, are at stake. Therefore, I urge the council to take immediate action. We work together with the county officials to acquire a municipal shelter and transfer animal control responsibilities to the county or the sheriff's department to ensure accountability and professional oversight. Protect our deputies from being put in a position where they are afraid to help animals in need. This is not just about one puppy. It's about the fundamental principles of compassion, accountability, and the protection of those who serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Saris, Palm Coast. What I wanted to talk about, I gotta forget that. Just on the last speakers, just so you know that to find out if a dog, whether it's a 7-month-old puppy or a 7-year-old dog, to find out if it has rabies, it needs to be decapitated and the brain sent to be clarified if it has rabies or not. And it seems to me that because one of their animal control officers are charged with animal cruelty because she neglected to get proper medical care for that animal, it looks like now they are trying to retaliate against a sheriff officer, suggesting that that officer was being cruel because it left the animal in the crate when they knew it was neurological problems. But anyway, I didn't want to talk about that today, but I just want to remind you of the joint meeting that was a few months ago with the county, city, and the Humane Society. It was asked that one of the commissioners, whether city or county, be put on the board because one of the board members had recently passed away. And it was told they already got someone. Well, where is that new someone? And I know they allow two commissioners to sit in on their board meetings, but why can't they be a member? But is it because they're too selective, or maybe it needs to be another husband and wife? I don't know. I also want to remind you, in that last meeting, they said they had $800,000 in an investment with Alliance of Investors. So if they have no plans or no future improvements for the shelter, what are they doing with that $800,000? People donate money for the welfare of our animals. Our city is getting bigger, and that means more people are coming, and they're coming with more animals. Amy just said that it's more owner euthanasias. According to the data they provided, and I'll leave a copy of this with someone, in last year it was only 10 owner intended euthanasias. In 23, it was 2, okay? But there was a total animals of 900, there was a total of 1,048 animals, sorry, get my numbers, of just dogs that were intake. And they transferred in 62 animals, canines, from other places. If we don't have room for our own county and cities, why are we taking in more? And I'll just leave this with you, and you guys can look it over.
Thank you, ma'am. You can leave it with the clerk. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Vincent Lyon, Palm Coast, and also I am a member of the board. I just wanted to address some of the issues that the council brought up, which is on the issue of the bylaws. Request came in last night. As a standard operation, private entities and 501c3s are not required to publish their bylaws. Publicly traded companies and civil governments are, but it's like asking Sears to provide you their operational procedures. Well, we have to look into that first. So the operation that came in last night, we will look into it, and I'm happy at this point to sit down with your attorney and show him, let him read through the bylaws. But the problem is they become public record if we provide them to you.
If it's a 501c3, sir, shouldn't they be public record?
Again, the standard is not to have 501c3s required to publicize their bylaws. I will, it's not my area of practice, so I will stand corrected if statutory evidence to the contrary is provided. But again, it's not a matter so much as not wanting the board to know them, as the council know them. You're welcome to read them. It's a question of making them public record. So anyway, maybe they will be. I mean, I don't know. We have to have time to review that request. That's all we're saying. It wasn't a flat-out denial that we can't provide them. We just need time to provide the request. I also wanted to say to the mayor, I'm disappointed in your statement today that you won't go to the shelter. You're bringing out issues that you say are problems, but you won't investigate them.
Sir, I have seen the worst of humanity throughout my career.
Sure.
So that's a personal preference. And my wife's a retired police officer, and I know about animal cruelty. I don't have to see it first.
I understand.
I don't have to see it firsthand and know what happens.
I understand, Mr. Mayor, but again, you're willing to get up here and publicly repeat statements that are
I didn't repeat any statement. I didn't repeat any allegations of anything going on at that shelter, sir.
Well, I apologize, Your Honor. The statements have been made from the commission,
Well,
city council.
it wasn't from this dais.
And I would invite the council, if you don't want to go personally, to send someone that you trust, because it is an open area. And our public finances are published every year. They're on our website. You can check them. The numbers, all of it's there, and everything supports what we've presented, what Amy presented today. And then there was another issue, and it slipped my mind. Oh, yes. The city recently took it upon itself to publicize on its website a great story about a dog that was injured and was picked up by animal control and was taken to Smart and Health, treated and is now adopted. Wonderful. Where are the stories for the Humane Society? We do that at least a weekly basis, but we don't get the publication from the city, the support that they get. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'd like to address dogs that are euthanized at Flagler Humane Society. I was a volunteer. I was a former volunteer for 2 years. I love the dogs. I'm passionate about the animals. We always celebrate it when dogs were being adopted. I used to try and talk to people, and I was asked by Amy in her office not to be talking to the people so much. She wanted me to back off, so I did. And the 2 years I was there, I was very thankful to be there because I was able to help a lot of dogs get adopted, but not just me. But as she mentioned, you do have some of the staff that are definitely passionate about the dogs. But to back off trying to get dogs adopted, I didn't understand that. But mostly I want to talk about dogs that were not sick. And she says they don't usually if they're not sick. Well, Guapo was 2 years old. Rocky was about 3 or 4. Tila was 4 or 5. And these are dogs they gave up on. Hubert, calm dog. He was about 10 years old, but he was healthy. There was nothing. Lola, Thor, Gus, Hank. Hank was a scared dog. Donnie was a year old. He was 1 year old, but he was scared. And yeah, somebody went to put their hand in his kennel and they were bit. But if they just use some training, they don't give any training to the volunteers, and they don't give real good training to their staff. There are staff that's been there a while, and they're there because of their love for animals. But not all of them are. They had hired somebody that was quite dangerous. Well, then the dogs are going to be put in a section they call the Zone 3. And Zone 3, it's almost like you might as well be on death row. Sorry, but Charlie was there over 2.5, 3 years, and they put him down. Why? Because they didn't give him special training. There are ways of doing that. If they do get a lot of donations, people donate properties to them. And what are they doing with those funds? So if our taxpayer dollars are going to help the shelter, then we do need to know where that money's coming from. Kyla was resource guarding. She just was afraid if somebody tried to take her food, and they put her down. She was about 2 years old. Asia was 14, and one of the other volunteers and myself fostered her. until she went home to Rainbow Bridge. And we wanted to do the same for Precious, and unfortunately, it was too late. They euthanized her. Thank you for
ma'am.
listening.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Connie.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I have nothing written down. This is from my heart. I am an advocate for animals. All this stuff, I have documentation. If you want me to send it to you, I have pictures. If you want me to send it to you, that they should be investigated, the Humane Society, for what they are doing. It's inhumane. How can they have people working there that leaves a dog shot in a cage because Amy said she can't afford it? And I have documentation and everything on that. I am just totally, I was a volunteer for many years, until a couple years ago, till I found out all this stuff was going on. We need to look into this. Don't come out and when they have everything prim and proper, and you're gonna walk in and they're gonna say, oh, look, see how good we are, you know, this and that. I've donated a lot of stuff to the animal shelter. I will not donate anything anymore. I will not go to the thrift store anymore. I won't do anything until I see a change. I think Amy has been there this too long, and we need a change. You know, she says, oh, I've been 40 years, and she has these degrees, but she's not following guidelines. She's not doing what the Humane Society is supposed to do. They're killing dogs. They had a white sheet up at the back where volunteers walked the dogs, and they were euthanizing them there. Why, the volunteers were walking the dogs. That's a disgrace. Something has to be done. I beg you, I plead with you, every members of this council, to please look into it and do something for these residents here that are true animal lovers. I have no more to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi there. Hi, my name is Marcia Bonimal, and everything she just said is totally true. I used to volunteer there, came in every day, walked all the dogs, cleaned up all the cages because the help either went home after the dogs went to the bathroom and cleaned everything up, watched dogs get put down. They shouldn't have got put down. They use people, their spouses that come in, they're not qualified to do certain jobs that they're doing. It was heartbreaking. I stood up for some dogs. I got some help, but I got fired as a volunteer because I spoke out and I said something to get help there for outside for the veterans. There was a veteran there, and I got some help for a dog that was owned by a homeless veteran that went to jail for 6 months, and they were going to put the dog down. But if they put that dog down when he got out, that would have been too much. He was a homeless one. But when I said something and went on the outside, I had no right to do that, to tell anyone what was going on inside. Things that were going on inside, they should be put away. Thank you, all of you, for investigating, and please keep it up because it's pretty bad. It really is. It's heartbreaking. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Lucia Ike. I live in the Double L section, and I've been a Palm Coast resident for 8 years. I've been rescuing my entire life since I was young, starting in New York, and I visited a lot of rescues, a lot of shelters, and I've seen the bad and the ugly and the good. I've seen it all. I've been a dog transporter for a very long time. That's all my husband allows me to do because he doesn't think that we could have more dogs in our house. I came here today not expecting anything. I wasn't even prepared to speak. I started writing some notes, but I've been donating to the Humane Society for a very long time. They didn't know who I was. I would just buy supplies, go to the front desk, drop it off, and I was always invited to tour their facilities. I feel like if they were hiding something or something was not correct or right, why would they invite me to tour their facilities? Some random lady that's just dropping off supplies. I used to volunteer for Sophie Circle down in New Smyrna. but it was too far, so I decided that maybe I need to spend my time in my city, so I started volunteering at the Humane Society. And everything that was said about the condition, I don't agree. I have shown up there different times and never seen what they are speaking of. I see the staff and the volunteers show the dogs love and support, and I recently just became trained to be a dog walker because I want to do more to help them get the dogs out and get them adopted, and I also do the outreach. I 100% the Flagler Humane Society. I am a dog lover. I donate to SMART. I donate to Sophie's. I volunteer for Flagler. So I'm here for the dogs and not whatever negative rumor things are going on online. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Caroline Johnson. I'm the director of SMART. I didn't come here to speak today, but because Mr. Lyon brought up the story that the city did about Smart and Rebel that was rescued, I feel it's my obligation to get up and explain a little bit about what I do for the community. So first, thank you to Barbara Grossman and her team and the city for supporting everything that we do for not only the dogs, but the residents who need us that we fundraise for. I've been here for about 10 years doing rescue as a volunteer. I spent many years volunteering with the shelter before starting SMART. I run a lost pet page on Facebook that helps families look and search for their lost dogs that go out for dumped dogs. I do it as a volunteer. Our organization has 0 paid staff, including myself. I do it for the love of the animals. The story about Rebel was a stray dog that got loose from a backyard. He was in very critical condition when we took him in. We spent over $4,000 of donated money from many other people you see here in this room. If it wasn't for the community and working together with the City of Palm Coast Animal Control, he probably would have been euthanized. So that story came about because of my work and my dedication and volunteer time in the City of Palm Coast. I don't do it as a paid staff. I don't have a facility that I run looking to build it and extend it or do anything else. I'm a volunteer. Okay, I have an organization, and we take in mostly abused and dumped dogs. Last week alone, I started at 6 in the morning and got in at 1 o'clock in the morning. You can gladly look on my Facebook page and our SMART page and look at the videos that are live videos and time-stamped of me in the woods taking dogs that are dumped in our community, and I'm out getting them. I don't see Vince Lyon dedicating his time to go in those woods with me to get these dumped dogs. So if he wants to defend the shelter and their behaviors, do that, but please leave my organization out of it, because he has no idea the sweat and tears I put into doing what I do as a volunteer, and I spent many years doing that same work for this same Humane Society that will lie on me and bash me. So be as an animal lover, I'm just asking you to please understand that I do it from the love of my heart. I rely on donations only. I don't have a contract with the city. I can go ask for one, I can go seek one. I don't do it because I don't need money. We get donations, and I'll go out 7 days a week myself and put up a tent and fundraise to save every single dog that I take in. I don't need county taxpayer money to do it. Thank you for the support, and again, thank you to Barbara Grossman for every time I call, anytime needing any assistance, she's right there to help. So thank you, and thank you to our residents who always donate. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Jackie Rector. I am the owner-operator of Houndstown, Palm Coast Spinel. I didn't come prepared to speak, but having heard all the allegations, I just felt moved to come and express my support of the Flagler Humane Society. When I retired and I had time to work with dogs, I immediately volunteered with the Humane Society. I have worked with them for several months, and I did receive training. I did receive training on how to walk the dogs. We did tours. There's a lot going on that's very positive with the Flagler Humane Society. You know, with any organization, nothing is ever perfect, but when you work with animals, you have to have a heart for the animals. This is difficult work. I work with dogs every day, and we have all different types of dogs, and not everything is easy. But Amy and her team, they are devoted. You can tell that they are devoted to what they do. They love what they do. And so I just ask that we all keep an open mind and look at the bigger picture as to what work is being accomplished. And let's all work together to try to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Ron Long, Aldo Drive. I guess, first off, I think a quick Google search will show that bylaws are not required for a 5013C. Maybe there's more nuance to it, and that's up to the legal scholars. I do want to say my daughter volunteered at the Humane Society 7 to 10 years ago when she was in school. She would spend summers there. She would spend spring breaks there. And of course, with her being underage, I had to be there as well during that time. I never saw anything but wonderful stuff coming out of the Humane Society. I think a lot of things are anecdotal. And my biggest takeaway on all this is evidently you guys have been receiving information about these complaints for a while now. My question is, why has no one from this board ever gone to take a look and see? And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello. My name is Jeff James. I live in Palm Coast, and I hope that the board and council will work out their differences and possibly think about entertaining a outlet for money to go to the Humane Society. I'd like to see it have a 24-hour hospital for pets, emergency. But when I decided to get a dog, it had to be a Chihuahua. And I finally found one, and I had to get him at 8 months old, or 8 weeks old. And I was a new dog owner, and I didn't know anything about training or anything. The first thing I had to do was start taking him to the Humane Society because they had a shot clinic. And I took him there, and he was, you know, he needed all of his shots, his rabies shots and everything, and his neutering service. And through the time, he's 14 months old now, he spent a lot of time going to this Humane Society because the girls there said, would you just bring the dog in because we want to look at him. But I've definitely got my taxpayers' money out of the Humane Society because neutering cost, if you got one animal, it's high, especially if you paid a lot of money for your dog. And then if you got 4 pets and you try to pay $800 for neutering per pet, that's $3,200 for 1 year for your pets. And definitely, I got my dog neutered there, and I called him up and I said, you did a spectacular job. The incision healed like in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You can look at the incision, it healed. They're really masters there. They're professionals. And I just, like I say, I'd like to say that I hope that you can work your differences out and supply a little bit of funds for this operation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Laurie Haig, and I'm a board member for the Flagler Humane Society. And I recently joined back in October of last year. So I've got limited experience there, but I have met some fantastic people in that short term. And also I've reviewed a lot of their documentation and their facilities. And basically they're a very fully functioning, efficiently running organization, and the staff and volunteers are extremely compassionate about the animals. And I've heard a lot of information today to the contrary, and bits and pieces here and there, and certainly everybody has their own experience in life and in saving animals and so forth. But has the city of Palm Coast or any of the other people here that are speaking put their concerns in writing? If you want to communicate something factually, it needs to be in writing. Public comment, use of social media is very destructive, and it also goes to an audience that is unprepared to receive it or respond to it. So I would suggest going forward that we have more regular coordination meetings. We treat this like a business relationship, which it is, and if there are problems that exist, we resolve them and move on. We're all about saving the animals, and I think you all have a concern for that as well. We want this to be good for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
You all know who I am. I wanted to speak, but I can't. This is very...
I'm sorry, Nick. It's Nick DeSantis. Allison,
Yeah,
if
I'm
you didn't
sorry.
know
I'm
his
Nick
name.
DeSantis, known as the dog father. Listening to these stories and knowing some of them are true, what I really wanted to say has been said. What needs to be done is serious investigation, especially with this animal control officer. I've had confrontations with her myself, and I'm a pretty easygoing guy, right? You all know that. Something has to be done. How do we have someone that was removed before and then brought back and now is on charges of animal cruelty still working there? I don't understand this. It bothers me every minute of the day that this person is out there, has no compassion for people, has no compassion for the animals, obviously. Why are we not looking at that more seriously? I know she was charged with animal cruelty, but I don't hear anything else about it. It needs to be known that you're bringing back a person that's been charged with animal cruelty to take care of animals off the street. It doesn't make any sense to me, nor does it make any sense to anybody in here. So that's where I really want to look. As far as the Humane Society, I've done work with them. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But I know a lot of those people that do work there and a lot of people that volunteer, they have a good heart and they work hard. And so do I. I do everything on my own. I do a nonprofit. I don't charge anything. I've transported for Amy a few times to hospitals on my dime, on my car, because I wanted to give something back. But I really wanted this animal control person, she needs to be investigated and she needs to be removed. Once that's done, I have no problem with the Humane Society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I won't take much more of your
Ma'am,
time.
have you already been up?
Yes.
Your public comment is over. We're not continue on. That's it. You have one time to
I
speak.
just wanted to thank Flagler Humane Society for the play group that they had started over a year ago. It has been amazing, and more dogs are getting adopted.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, I'll bring it back to the dais. Any more comments from the council?
Yeah, I just wanted to address the bylaws again, because we had some commentary on that. Just a quick search shows that, to me, that they are not legally required. However, it says pretty much on every website regarding nonprofits that best practice is to have them openly available and transparent for transparency purposes, to engender trust and goodwill. So that would be my position, is that we have a situation here where the trust is being questioned, and the answer is to say, this is proprietary. I don't believe that the Flagler Humane Society has proprietary practices that they need to defend against other nonprofits operating. So it doesn't make any sense to me to say, well, you know, we've got to keep our trade secrets, so to speak, private in order to do our job well. I think if the mission is truly for the animals, then if you've got some great practice that is doing a better job than anyone else out there, you would want it to be public for everybody else to see and utilize those practices as well. Something else, but I can't. I lost it there in that moment, so I'm going to pass it back.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
So I have been out to the Flagler Humane Society. Actually, when I was first elected, Amy gave me a tour of the Humane Society, and I've been back out since then, and we've adopted a cat since then, which is why I stayed away from the anecdotal stories and all of those things. My focus is on the financials. I want to know how we've planned for expansion and growth. Everything else that we see in our city is we're growing, we're expanding. Some would argue we're growing too quickly, present company included, and we have infrastructure needs. Why are we not planning for the infrastructure for our animals? That's my issue. What have we been doing? And if the fees that we're paying per our contract are clearly not cutting the mustard, why are those the fees? Why were those the fees 4 or 5 years ago? I can't believe that they were sufficient that long ago, and all of a sudden they're not. So I think that there's a failure to plan here that is very bothersome, and there needs to be some accountability for that. If the board needs to change, if leadership needs to change, there need to be changes, I believe very strongly, just when looking at the financials for the Humane Society, so that we can better provide for our animals in our community. Whether or not there's another option that the city looks at, I will look at that the same way I look at everything else. What is best for the residents and for the community and for our tax dollar? We've heard stories from both sides here. Some say Humane Society is great. Others say it's not. There's a lot to be wanted. So I'm coming at this, I love animals. I have a very deep compassion for animals, but from purely putting all that aside, from a business perspective, there are issues that we need to address. And I look forward to more discussions based on that with this council.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Gambaro? Okay, with that said, we're going to close this item. Can I get a consensus? Let's take a 10-minute break, come back into session at 11:30? All right, we're going to adjourn for 10 minutes.